welcome back to the hot seat. We are going to jump right into our next guest. Like, I actually know her. She actually is a great friend of mine, and she is great energy, very professional in what she does. She's an ex-gymnast, now she's an actress and host of her own podcast called Always Acting Up. So everyone, please welcome Miss Caslin Rose. Hi, beautiful.
Hi.
You look amazing.
Thank you so much.
Please take a seat. You're right now sitting in the hot seat. Finally, I have you here.
I am honored to be here. I'm very, very excited.
Yeah, so first and foremost, big congratulations to you. She had just given birth not too long ago. So it took me a little bit to get her on here. I was not going to bother her while she was pregnant. But we're back in the game. You're here. You're in front of the camera. It's the dream come true for all of us. Yeah, so let's talk about your past. So you had your roots in gymnastics, right? And so tell everyone, like, where you're from, where you're born, and all that nonsense.
Okay, so we're going to go way back here.
Yes, let's do it.
Yeah, actually born in California, Beverly Hills. Mm-hmm. Hey, grew up in Texas. And yeah, like I heard you guys were mentioning in the previous interview, I do have a really strong gymnastics background. And I think that was one of the biggest reasons also we connected at one point, because I'd be scrolling through Instagram looking at all these gymnastics things. And I'm like, oh, this girl Priscilla has liked every single one that I've liked. So that was pretty much my background, like my entire life, training, homeschool training, like the works.
Yes.
Retired, and then I transitioned into dancing, which I think is a really kind of natural transition for a lot of gymnasts.
Yeah, it was me too. I mean, that's how we connected.
Yeah, I transitioned into dancing and danced professionally for quite a while in LA. I always knew that I was going to be in front of the camera, an actor and host. I just didn't know how I was going to get there. Like, I knew I was going to be in this world, but I didn't know how I was going to get there. And while I was doing dancing, I was also kind of slowly building up my acting, doing shorts, spec commercials, not really like pushing. Yeah. And I think with most athletes or dancers, an injury comes along, and that will turn your world upside down. And that was it for me. Like, it was like, oh, I can't roll over in bed anymore. My back is done. Like, how am I gonna do like all these jetés and this and this and this? I can't even stand up right now. I'm crawling on my hands and knees. And that was my big like push to go more into acting full time. And from there, started hosting, creating my own content. Producing, and now of course I have the podcast Always Acting Up. So what really drew you into staying in the industry? Did you love being on set, or did you always just have a dream for loving the craft and stuff like that? I think it's a little bit of everything. I think people talk about the acting bug all the time. Like, once you get involved and once you get that creative process like going, there's really no other careers or occupations like it. Like, how will I go from creating my own content and producing this and making this show to sitting in an office doing paperwork? And there's nothing wrong with that. But just my entire life I've always known that I was going to be in this industry to some capacity. And so I'm grateful to be here. It hasn't always been the easiest journey, I think, with most artists.
I never
are
really
aware of that.
If it was an easy journey, there's something, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's a little skeptical if it's way too easy, you know?
Yeah.
So another question for you. So basically, like, you know, you switch gears and you're doing all of these things, but, you know, you worked in it for a minute. What drove you to start creating your own content? Was it you just figuring out, like, hey, this is so hard, I gotta just continue to create and be there? Or was it a little something else?
I actually started creating my own content a long time ago, and I was just thinking about this as I was listening to the other interview. I actually started creating my own content like back when Issa Rae's Awkward Black Girl was sort of circulating, like a long time ago. That's when I had kind of started creating my own content. That's when the DSLRs became more available for people. And I was actually gifted like a Canon Rebel T3i, which is fairly basic, but it's a great camera. And I was, you know, either you're an actor, you sit around and wait for an audition, or you can try and create things. And YouTube was just sort of coming up, and I started creating my own content. But I think anyone who creates their own content knows it's so much work.
Yes.
And I was doing it for a little while, and it just kind of got to the point where I was like, I'm spending days and days and days on 2 minutes of content, and I'm not getting any views. And that's kind of why I stopped for a little while. I did get discouraged.
Yeah.
But it was a big reason, just the creative process. Learning how to do all this was a big reason of creating my own content, and it's very fulfilling.
Yeah, I mean, it did push you in different ways, though, seeing the behind the scenes, kind of figuring out all avenues, because then that ended up leading you to having your own podcast if you didn't do all of that prior. So when did the podcast become a thing? Because it's always acting. I happen to be on as a guest on the podcast, which is where we really connected a little bit more, getting to know each other. But when did you start to be like, okay, I just want to meet people in the industry?
I think it had been sort of in the works for a while. My partner actually bought equipment, and his intention was to start a podcast. However, he never did.
Yeah.
And he kept encouraging me, you really should consider creating your own content again. We got this podcast, we got this equipment, and I don't know anything about audio, and audio obviously is like podcast 101. Like, you need to know all of this information. And it was kind of during the pandemic. There was not a lot going on. I took as many acting classes and things online as possible, but it was perfect. It was perfect timing, and everybody was at home, and it was a great opportunity to reach out to new actors and artists and models and see their journeys and share their stories and what worked for them, what could work for you, and kind of help everybody else out. It's also an intimidating process, just as I mentioned, like, I didn't know anything about anything, so some of the episodes are, like, really rough, but I've had some amazing guests. Priscilla's actually, like, one of my best guests so far.
Oh, really?
Her numbers are, like, way up there. We learned a lot. It was a really great episode, and I get to connect with other people. Like, we meet people in passing all the time, and it's, hey, how are you doing? See you on this job, see you the next, but you never get to really talk about their journey and how you got here and what you want to do. And the world's first petite supermodel, I got to interview on my podcast, Always Acting Up. So that was really great for me.
But it's a great time. And that's kind of another reason why I love this show, is because I get to sit here and really dig into the other person instead of talking about myself, right? Especially when you are kind of in the acting and you're kind of the talent. You're used to having to sit there, repeat the same story, or answer the same questions, or, meet the same people that want your help, blah, blah, blah. But when you just get to sit here, we're in a different realm of hosting and what it's like talking to other people and just finding something that relates you. I think you can take a lot of inspiration from. And so I think that you probably figured that out as the episodes went on. You're like, oh my gosh, like, there's so much more and in depth.
Yeah, and it's really cool. What I noticed is, some people, they're, like, very quiet, but, like, once you ask them, like, a couple questions, they just go. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just going to sit back and relax, and you keep talking, and I'm just going to let you keep going. And it was really fun to just listen to people. And I think we don't often get to share our stories enough, which is probably why I'm also just going. I'm always on that side, so being on this side, I'm just going to keep talking, and people just like to share their journeys.
Yeah, and that's the main point. And sometimes you see that they're a little nervous, and you got to kind of make them feel comfortable in a way just to get out. You could see it kind of like a therapy thing. And they're just like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't think anyone would care about that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's actually, and some of the topics I like to cover on my podcast are situations that happened to me, and I'm like, no one's done. No, this hasn't happened to anybody else. And I'm like, oh, it did happen. Yeah. It happened to her. It happened to her, him, her. We do all share these experiences that we don't, we think we're the only ones, and it maybe isolating, or don't want to talk about it, or it's shameful, embarrassing. You're not the only one. There's a lot of people going through the same stuff.
Yeah, in different ways, in different forms, right? Because we all technically are different, and a lot of times the things that we go through is just based on who we individually are, unfortunately. Like our struggles, how it affects other people, unfortunately. So what would probably be the most common thing that you realize has connected you with all of your guests, whether it be actors, models, producers?
Good question. We are all artists, of course. Totally random, but it popped into my head the other day because I did see a picture of a friend, and her sister is a doctor. And I was just thinking, like, that seems to be, like, a thing with a lot of artists. Our siblings are all, like, have PhDs and masters. I'm like, I don't know if that's a thing. Like, you got one sibling who's creative and the other one's like, I'm gonna go and be a doctor. But what has actually connected us, I think, just honestly love for creating.
Yeah.
Love for the industry, love for the process, because like we mentioned, it's not easy. Unless you're Jennifer Lawrence or, you know, someone big, we're not quite balling yet. Yeah. So it is a journey, and I think we all relate because we all understand what that process is like and the sacrifices. Yeah. I think that is a common ground for every single person, what they've put into it.
Yeah. Do you think, and I love asking host athletes this, is that because gymnastics and dance is very, very work ethic oriented. It's very, you know, you have to go in and you have to show up and you have to continue to grow. Do you think that has made a big impact on how you navigate the industry?
1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. I did gymnastics from the time I was 2.5 to 14. And yes, that sounds like I retired really early, but I was really, really going for it. Like 7-8 hours a day.
Those are prime years though, the 14 to 16.
Yeah,
to compete.
Yeah, like I was 14 and I was good enough for a scholarship, but I was burnt out and exhausted. But the fall down, get up, the keep going, the pushing forward, you're injured, you're hurt, you're tired, whatever, you keep going because there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. And I think it's the same thing with this industry. And I do 1,000,000% believe that is what has kept me in this game. And I didn't get that audition, or I didn't get a callback, I didn't get the audition, like I didn't get anything. I just keep going because there's always something else.
Yeah. So that's what a lot of people, I think, and you probably can attest to this, maybe not vocally say it, but work ethic will lead you farther than anything. Yes. Humbleness will lead you farther than anything, and then talent kind of comes next. I mean, you still have that as a foundation, but you know, you're going to last longer if you continue to fight for it in a more humble way. Right, because everyone's here trying, you know, clout, being very superficial, you know, they got lucky, now they think they're here, but, right, like there's a different way people move.
I have seen that over the years, a lot of people who are way more talented than I am, but it's hard, and they didn't want to do it, or they didn't realize the work that they were going to have to put into it, and they have stopped. So work ethic is absolutely everything.
It's discouraging. Like a lot of people are just there purposely to bring you down and take you down because they don't want you to succeed because they didn't. Right, it's a whole crab out of the bucket. They don't want them. They pull them down. You know,
it is. It's challenging. It's definitely challenging.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging. So you also do photography.
Yes.
Which is something we can market here because if you guys ever need some headshots, Caslin is like a pro at this.
Yes.
So you're just going in all different realms of behind the scenes. And so I think what's also amazing is that with your podcast, there's a similarity when you do photography is that you're meant to, for a headshot, you got to bring out this person through one photo. This is your selling photo. This is a photo that's going to, you know, push you to casting directors. So how do you direct an actor that'd be like, oh my God, I really want a good one? Like, you tell the audience how you kind of work as a photographer and bring that great photo out.
Yeah, I think because I have so much experience in front of the camera myself, I understand what it's like. It is very uncomfortable. Most people think models, for example, just stand there and look pretty, but it's very hard. I can't do it. I cannot do it. It's much easier to talk on camera or to act on camera. I'm not looking in the camera. I'm not, you know, making cute faces or whatever. It's very difficult to try and look a certain way or pose a certain way. It's very, very challenging. So I understand what people feel like. And so me now being behind the camera, I try and make them as comfortable as possible. And there are some poses that are very uncomfortable, but they make you look better. For example, like I don't have the strongest jawline, and you may see that right now, but certain things like, you know, push your neck out, it's going to make you have more definition. And just telling people that, hey, it may feel uncomfortable for this short time period, but you're going to look amazing on camera. And the more comfortable and relaxed I can make people, the better picture it's going to be. And sometimes whatever they have in their head looks good, it may not look so great on camera.
Right.
So, you know, kind of relax and be comfortable. And music, if you have something that, you know, gets you going, some CrossFit music, or go to the gym beforehand, all of these things will help show in your pictures.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing you brought up a good point is everyone has a stigma of what it's like to have a pretty picture, just be pretty, right? But a lot of it's going with angle and lighting and shadow work, especially like if you have more flatter features like I do. In order to, the camera's not going to be very happy with that. It's going to make it, editing, lighting is going to make it kind of worse. Like everything's amplified.
It is.
You see everything, speaking, smizing, like Tyra Banks. Like for a good headshot, I feel like you notice that you draw to the person's eyes, and then you look everywhere else. Yeah.
Yes. That was something I wanted to make very clear, and a lot of people talk about models, and I'm like, it's so much harder than you think. Trust me. In front of the camera and behind the camera, it's so much more difficult.
Yeah.
So I give people a lot of credit. It's not just stand there and...
Yeah, and I love bringing that up.
She's just lucky. She's just pretty.
Right, she's just pretty. Like,
it's a lot of work.
Yeah, or I can just copy that photo, and they're like, why does it look the same? Because it's also like being an actor as well. Like you're a persona. The minute the camera turns on, and I don't know how you are with an actor, but you kind of change. You automatically know that there's a camera, and then this is what I'm here for today, right?
And I have to be that character. I am not me. I can still have essence of me, but that's not what we're going for.
So you've done all these things, you had a beautiful baby, all of this stuff. What is your goal at the end of this tunnel? What are you really looking to be? What is your legacy really looking like for you?
That is a beautiful question. I love that question. I grew up watching Lucille Ball. Loved Lucille Ball. I Love Lucy was the reason why I never slept as a kid. My parents I got a TV in my room growing up, and I watched I Love Lucy all night long. And so if I could be on a show like Friends or I Love Lucy, like a sitcom, like someone iconic like that, that is the absolute ultimate goal, dream goal. Yeah. And of course, if I could produce it, if it could be my own show, like,
I feel like that's very you.
Even better. And something like that, or I've always kind of joked on my podcast, I'm coming for you, Seacrest. I want your jobs.
Hallmark. She could be the next, Lacey Chabert. You know what I'm saying? Like, I see it.
I want to host, like, New York City, New Year's Eve. Like,
yeah, I see that too.
You have enough. He just got
he does.
Seacrest just got
got Wheel of Fortune.
Give me one. Just give me one.
You know what I'm saying? He gets all the biggest ones, which, I mean, good for him.
Absolutely.
He earned it, right?
Yeah,
but like,
for sure.
I was like, watch Seacrest get Wheel of Fortune. Once that person retires, he's the biggest one, and he's like, oh my God. I'm like, of course he did.
Yeah, just give another one away. I'm available. That would be like the dream
American
job.
Idol. There you go.
Thank
right?
you. Please.
But that's absolutely amazing. And the residuals be great. You do a couple of seasons of your sitcom, continue like 2.5 Men, forever. You're set. You and your family. That's always the actor's dream. Is once those residuals to the day you die. That's
set my baby up for life.
Yeah, I mean that's the goal as every actor. Like for me, that's something that you don't want your kids to be struggling because you're struggling, right? You want to, by the time you have that, be enough to be like, okay, see, and it's a good motivation for them to know that if you work hard enough, like look what you can achieve.
I want my son to be pure nepotism.
A Nepo baby 101.
How did he get this? Oh, his mom.
Oh, yeah.
His mom. I put in the work for you because it...
Right.
It's easy.
Right. It isn't. But it's always worth it in the end.
For sure.
Now that you're a mom, you can kind of see, like, I have another person to work for to be proud of me, right?
Yeah, and I feel accomplished. I know, like, I never, and I haven't yet to this point, I still can. I haven't gotten to where I want to, but when I do take a moment to reflect on what I have accomplished, now that I'm kind of taking a break in this new role of mine, it is nice to be like, oh, I have done a lot. I've accomplished a lot, and I'm really proud of where I am right now.
Yeah, you have a good head on your shoulders where when you are able to go be like, okay, I'm going to go back to the hustle of auditioning, it's just like, everyday thing, like, okay, here we go, back in the office, right? Like, it's just human nature because you've done it for so long and you actually have a very genuine goal. It's very authentic.
Yeah, it's going to be a different experience, but I still have, the bread and butter, which I think will probably carry over everywhere.
Yeah. So quick question about acting, because I know I've had a lot of actors come on talking about how their training, their methods, there's 4 biggest methods that everyone studies, Meisner, Stanislavski method, all those things. But how do you normally prepare for a role? What sits well with you? Because everyone is different.
I have to read my script so slowly. I have to read it again, because I'm like, oh, that's what they meant. Like, some people are really fast and they're like, oh, we're doing this, it's the character. I can't process like that. I'm very slow. I'll admit, I'm very slow, and there's nothing wrong with that. Totally normal. Right. I have to really dig my script apart.
Yeah.
I have to talk about what you're looking for. Even though I've done classes after classes after classes and training, that's just my process.
Yeah.
And I do like the method. I have to really get in character. If I'm wearing overalls and I'm looking for a Southern piece, like I'm gonna feel more like that character. So that's my process.
Yeah, which is great. I love hearing different actors' process because it shows people that there's not one way, and it's not as simple as just memorizing a line and then repeating it on camera in a natural way. Right?
I think also what I noticed during my podcast, and I don't want to too much, but I always felt really insecure because there's some people with such extensive training and they know this method and this method and this method. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not good because I don't know that or I'm not experienced with that. But everybody is different. And I think that was really important for me to learn on my podcast and talking with other actors that we all have our own experience and we can still achieve the same thing but differently. Yeah, because it's what works for you. It's the same thing like we talked about with the trainer earlier. Every type of exercise does not work for people, right? Like what I enjoy, because you have to enjoy it. Like if you don't enjoy that and it feels like a chore, the best version of yourself is is not going to come out. Your success, the product, right? It's not going to be as genuine, right? Especially with working out. Goodness. Yes. But yeah, and then also we all have different lives, and all actors, one thing in common is you're taking from something, right? And so what might work for that person, they live a completely different life than me. I'm not going to be able to channel it the same way that's safe for them, because safety is also a really big thing with actors. When they can't get out of a certain character, or they dig too deep, and then now they're in a hole and can't control, right? The character control is the biggest thing, would you say, doing a role? Yeah. Especially, like, I'm thinking there's certain roles, like, it takes me a really long time to get there, and I've even been on set before when I'm trying to get into a certain place, and the background actors and everybody else in the crew, I don't think they meant it in a disrespectful way, but they were so loud that I could not remember, I couldn't focus, and it wasn't like they were in another room, they were, like, here. Yeah. They were very, very close, and it was, I didn't mean to pull like a Christian Bale, but it was like, hey, I'm sorry, can you guys be more quiet? Because I'm really trying to get into this really intimate, personal space, and it's a little distracting when you guys are talking about that hot date last night. Yeah, right. So I'm sure it was a great time, but it is, you do pull from personal experiences, and sometimes it can be embarrassing if you really think about it, but if you really want to take it that far, yes, but no at the same time, because it is acting, and that is our job, is to be vulnerable, right, to a point, but in order to be able to not consume you, because at the same day you have like a 16-hour set day, right? After this, when you're moving to the end of the movie, and you gotta be like this, right? Like you're snapping here, there, everywhere, knowing how to turn, now I was in the state, oh my god, in 1 hour we're gonna have to be in a different one, right? Yeah, and you still have to keep your energy up. On hour 12, your 10th take of hour 12 still has to be as good as your first take, hour 1. Yeah. So you have to pull from somewhere. You got to suck it up. You got to drink, hydrate, whatever you have to do, because you got to keep the energy up, or it's going to start showing on camera. Oh yeah, cameras is everything. Yeah, everything is different. Like with photography, I think this looks great on camera. This looks great, and it doesn't. You're like, it's not giving. Different. You know, I'm needing something. It's different, right? Yeah. You need to see the passion behind the eyes, and really just, because at the end of the day, for a viewer, you have to picture it. If you're watching a movie, what really pulls you in, right? Because you're invested in the story. You're not watching, oh my god, yeah, the continuity was off. Like, a crew left a coffee cup, people, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, so looking at it from both sides, which a lot of people wouldn't know. So a couple more questions. The next one being, what do you look for when you're looking for guests for your podcast? What's kind of the criteria? Do you stick with a certain theme, solely actors and models, or do you expand? Yeah, so my podcast is called Always Acting Up. It is found on all podcasting platforms and YouTube. It kind of has evolved to what I was looking for. Originally, it was going to be my personal stories and my journeys, but I realized it was just so hard to talk to myself in a camera and keep a story going. So I do look for actors, artists, pretty much the entertainment industry, worldwide. Okay. I've had guests from all over the country, all over the world. I've had my parents as guests, but I do look for people who have a story to tell. I love when people pitch me an idea. That's actually my favorite, because you already have a story that you want to tell, something you want to share. I do look for people who are supportive of their careers and mine. It is important, I think, especially with a social media show like this, for people to help promote it. Some people don't, and that is very challenging, because it's the world we live in. So I do look for people who are active and who are really go-getters. I think that's a common theme with a lot of my podcast guests. We're all proactive and we're all go-getters, and not a lot of us just sit around and wait for those auditions. We're not quite there yet. So I do look for creatives, really.
The ones that are very passionate, because I'm sure all of them have a lot to say, right? A
lot to say.
The journey of their hustling, they have been through a lot of things, in order to really build their story and their work ethic.
Absolutely.
So the one last question I ask all of my guests, because I love this question, and it really sums up them as a whole and their purpose in what they do. Is there a philosophy that you live by?
There is. This was also a question that I heard in the previous interview, and I was like, oh, that is a fantastic question. Let me think about that. And it clicked like right away. And this was actually something that an old gymnastics coach had said to me. I had retired at 14, and then I had kind of toyed on the idea of coming back. And with gymnastics or with sports, working out in general, you're out for a week. Like, it's so hard to get back on that bandwagon. And what he had said to me is that hard work never disappears. It never goes away. All the blood, sweat, and tears that you've put in the past, it's always going to be there with you. There's always a lesson in there. And that is something that, like with the auditions, when I go back, my bread and butter is always going to be there. It's not like I don't know how to do a self-tape setup. I know how to do all these things. So the hard work that I put in is always going to carry me through. So hard work never disappears.
And that's true, and it's going to carry you farther. And that's kind of where you're at. I mean, you've accomplished so much, so you should applaud yourself for that.
Thank
you have a creative mind where you're like, okay, what new can I go down? Because you have a foundation of knowing. The difference with this in sports is you know it and you have a craft, but this is your job, right? So I think when people go in the office, it's the same thing. It's basically the same thing. It's just every gig's different, right? The client's different, but you're able to navigate entertainment and camera work and learn something new. Some new social media app by then is going to come up. You're going to be like, all right, how do we do this? And trying to just make the most out of promoting yourself, promoting their love for the craft, and just building your legacy, girl.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you so much. I really like having hosts on here. I'm always so nervous being like, oh my God, I don't want to disappoint them. Because they'll be like, oh, this girl, like, what is the vibe? But anyway, thank you so much for taking your time out, coming on the hot seat. Caslin Rose, everyone, please tell them where they can find you.
Yes, thank you so much. This is an honor to be here. This is my first type of like really anything since I had the babes. But you can find me. You can reach out to me if you want to be a guest on the podcast. Always Acting Up podcast. You can find me caslinrose.com, Caslin Rose, Rose. Social media, Caslin Rose. I made everything very simple. Everything is Caslin Rose. So find me, reach out to me, subscribe, say hi, ask questions. Any questions about the industry, I'm here for you. She's here for you.
She's an intellect, 100%. So everyone, thank you so much. Round of applause.
Thank you.
Make sure to go check her out, and when we come back, I'm never done talking, so don't go anywhere.